Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Tom and Scott
Oh man.
from BadCuzDad, and we're here with another live show. We, man, got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. It feels crazy that we had a 2 episodes drop of Bad Batch, right? Um, I was doing all the stuff, getting everything ready for this live show, and it was, I still had the stuff up with Gunji, and I was like, wait, so much has happened since then. So we have a lot to talk about with Bad Batch for sure. Also, I think since the last time we talked, some footage dropped, gameplay stuff for Jedi Survivor that I know we're pretty pumped about, especially Scott. And so we want to touch on that today as well. Kind of take a look at the trailer and see, what's different from Fallen Order and just kind of some stuff we're excited about. But anyway, man, Scott, what have you been up to this week? Shows, games? What's keeping you busy?
A little bit of sickness, man. I know you have too. A little bit of sickness running through the family. So yeah, we've been coughing, and
Yeah.
looking back at those, especially the episode 8 breakdown. Apologies for the lousy quality. I listened back to that and I was like, "Eesh, sounds
You got to do
terrible."
what you got to do. I mean,
Yeah, but hey,
so,
just to answer your question, as far as gaming, I've been playing some Harry Potter. Well, Hogwarts.
dude, let's talk
Yeah,
about it. Okay.
that's
So
yeah.
you finally got in, right? You're like
Hmm.
one of the lowly plebs who didn't get in till the 10th
Right. Right.
because you didn't pre-order the big package. But anyway, so
Mhm.
first impressions of Hogwarts Legacy, man. What do you think? Because you're a huge Harry Potter fan, so
Yeah,
self-proclaimed. So what do you think, man?
it's good. It is
Yeah.
very, very good. Yes, it is. I'm not that far in yet, but it is pretty much everything that I was hoping for. It's very Red Dead-esque, and the world is just phenomenal. Like it's already incredibly immersive, and it's just been a little bit overwhelming. Like I don't have that time to sink in like I used
Mm,
to. So I'm trying to just get my bearings together, but so far it's great, and clearly the reviews have definitely like verified that as well.
that's awesome, man. And what about like house and stuff like that? Or do you want to divulge that info, or you want to save that for like your impressions video or something that we
Oh, I
do?
picked Slytherin. I went for it.
Really?
I think I'm gonna do the evil. Well, not evil, but I'm gonna be a user of the unforgivables.
Oh man.
Because I'll tell you what, man. The best part of the
Okay.
game so far for me. So let's be honest. Like Harry Potter's nerdy, man. Using a wand is kind of nerdy. Like let's throw that
Okay.
out there. It's a little dorky. I'll agree to that. But the way the combat has been done, and the
Mm-hmm.
way the camera moves during animations and slows down, like
Mm.
it's the combat is so satisfying. Like it's
Okay.
pretty. It's beefy for using a little stick as your weapon.
Well,
Put it that way.
I haven't, like I said, I haven't played it yet, but from the trailers, the thing that was the coolest about the trailers I saw was the combat, to be honest. It looked like
Hmm.
there was like so much counterplay
Yeah.
and not like a turn based, but almost in the way like you have to be thinking about the whole situation and how you're going to deal with multiple enemies at once. It seemed pretty in depth, which I thought was really cool. So,
It's about as good as what I would think wand combat would turn into if you were to remove it from the movies and put it in a
yeah.
game. It's intuitive. It is varied. There's so many. There's not tons of spells, but there are a lot of spells, enough to make combat consistently interesting. And I haven't even gotten that far, man. Like I don't. I mostly have utility spells right now, so I don't even
Right.
have any of the good ones or anything like that. I
And have
just
you
got the
like
little stealth one, and
so
that's
you
pretty
haven't
cool.
have you seen a lot of like the environments and stuff yet or
I've seen Hogsmeade and Hogwarts, so I was able to
okay.
run to Hogsmeade from Hogwarts. I haven't even gotten a broom yet. I got to see the
Okay.
Forbidden Forest on the side, and it's
Hmm.
just it's so immersive,
Whomping
man.
Willow, all that stuff.
I don't think I haven't seen that yet. I'll once I get the
Maybe they don't
broom.
have it.
I'm
Okay.
sure it is. Once I
Well,
get the
either
broom, I'm going. I'm
yeah.
going places.
Okay. Well, either way, I am. looking forward to seeing some of your gameplay, and we'll see if it captures me enough to jump in, because I haven't played a single player RPG since probably Skyrim, to be honest.
It's fun, man. The environment it looks just like the movies, the school, and all the
any like crossover like similar features to like Fallen Order or Survivor? Do you think they're gonna have similar stuff?
I mean, it looks like camera angles are a little similar in the combat,
Okay.
but I mean, you're looking at a range class versus a melee class, so to speak. But you can tell that the refinement in combat is getting better in games, and it's starting to go that route. I think for most RPGs going forward, it's going to have this cinematic, hopefully beefy feel to all of it.
Like an action feel, probably, hopefully, to it, like
Yeah.
fast paced. Okay.
Yeah, and the first Fallen Order was like that too. We should
gotcha.
start calling it Jedi Survivor now.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Jedi Survivor at the closer to the end of the podcast too. So stick around for that.
Sorry,
we are
my cat keeps licking himself in the back.
so many jokes that could be made.
Senator Chuchi.
So let's actually show. We did our breakdown obviously this week. We did 2 episodes, but we're only going to show the most recent one. So we're going to show like a 30-second clip of the most recent episode, kind of show you guys what we do on the channel with our breakdown videos, and then we'll kind of get into the discussion. So let's go ahead and cue that up.
Today, we're picking up right where we left off with episode 8, titled Truth and Consequences. The clones are hanging out on the ship, recuperating from their most recent skirmish on Kashyyyk, all looking slightly tired. We pan to Omega, and once again, she's meditating in similar fashion to how we left her in the previous episode. As the Gonk droid slowly waddles up to her, I can't help but feel the nostalgia of R2 rumbling about while Luke meditated in the original trilogy. Echo approaches her and inquires about it, somewhat interested in her newfound ritual. Omega says that Gungi taught her, but it doesn't quite work the same. Echo replies, well, he's a Jedi. She says she realizes that.
There you go, guys. That's a little bit of the most recent breakdown we did on episode 8. We obviously have one for episode 7 as well. We were kind of caught off guard by the 2 episodes dropping.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I'm not sure if that was announced, but we kind of missed that. So we kind of put out we did a full breakdown for each episode. We just thought that would be best. And there was a lot going on in both episodes. It was worth it for sure. So go check those out on the channel, guys, if you haven't yet. But all right, man. Well, let's get into Bad Batch. There's a lot to talk about, obviously, with 2
What a
episodes.
great show. Man,
Yeah,
what a great show.
Yeah, I'll just talk about I'll start first this time with some of my initial impressions. Obviously, getting the clone story kind of story arc has been really cool to see in Bad Batch. I didn't know they were going to take it this direction, but man, I'm really happy they have. And it makes sense with the Bad Batch, you know, being so closely tied to the other clones, kind of the crossovers with Cody and Rex and stuff like that. So that's been really cool. And so to see that play out was really awesome. And then the other one, which I'm sure you have some stuff to say about this, but I mean, Palpatine. I mean, my impressions are like, wow, they did a great job with that, right?
Who doesn't love some Papa Palps? That's the way I look at it. Right?
He's back. He's back.
You love to hate him.
So I don't know, the way they shot his character and kind of the tone with him, I thought was a really, really cool touch, tying the Bad Batch, you know, to the rest of the trilogy or the Skywalker saga.
The overall story.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, those are some cool things going on, but
yeah,
we'll just talk about the clones, because obviously this first half of the season, as it turned out, you know, I think at first a lot of people were wanting some more progression with the Bad Batch itself, maybe Omega, but we kind of went down this road of kind of a winding story of unfolding. And we even mentioned this a lot in the beginning, right? Like they kept making these comparisons to clones and droids and to, you know, just diminishing the clones almost in a way, like with Rampart and through the other things. And so they really did a slow build on this, and it had a really big payoff, obviously,
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. The thing that's interesting is they're really showing the clones are waking up to everything going on. They're showing a sense of morality and kind of also dealing with their own mortality, right? At the same
Yeah.
time, which is something that you didn't see before with clones, but I don't know. What you
Individuation. They're starting to build they always had their nicknames and kind of
sure.
their little nuances, but now they're starting to wonder what their identity is because everything that they have known and been doing for the Republic, now the Empire is just flipped on its head. They don't have a place, and I think they're starting to see that the Empire is very different from what they thought the Republic meant, and they don't know where they fit into this new picture yet.
Well, I think it's been good clarification for us as fans too, because I think for the longest time, Order 66 was kind of mysterious, where we were thinking
Yeah,
like, go ahead, you can say it. What were you gonna say?
we said mysterious. It was just it was just so sudden. There's a certain suddenness about it that just took the galaxy by storm. All of a sudden, the war drastically changed. The Jedi were essentially eradicated, and now you have this entire army that really thought what it was fighting for is suddenly not. So it's been for them. The shift had to be just monumental for them. Like they no longer they were so close to the Jedi in those wars. You know, they were friends. Obviously, Rex and Anakin, Rex and Ahsoka, Obi-Wan and Cody. Like they built some strong relationships, and all of a sudden that was just gone. And like the rug was just pulled out from their feet, and they just don't know where to go from here. And they notice the change, but can't quite process it at the same time.
Yeah, and I think part of too the mystery I was talking about is, well, I think for me at least, and I think a lot of us, we didn't know like what is the extent of kind of control that the Emperor has, or what does the inhibitor chip actually do? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or does that mean they have to follow every single order? You know what I mean? Like, does it turn them into
Yeah.
robots, kind of? And so they kind of made a purposeful effort to distance from that theory. You know, in the beginning of the episode about the clones talking about how they're not robots and they can decide, you know, their course of actions and they have to live with those actions.
It
You know, as
looks to
Cody
be like it
mentioned
was
across here.
just for the Jedi.
Right, right.
It's just a kill switch for them.
Right. And so it makes sense that in a way, the clones now are kind of waking up. Like obviously they open episode 7 with was it Slip and Cade? Yeah. And so obviously Cade's like, I gotta like it's eating at his conscience. He's like, I have
Right.
to come forward with this. Like this is an atrocity that can't be overlooked, you know, regardless of what happens to me
Yeah.
or my welfare, you know, and Slip's like, no, you got to chill out. You can't talk about this. We need to, you know, survive this kind of a thing. And so I don't know. It's just been an interesting ride with the clones and kind of see this realization of what's going on has been super cool. And it just it makes you want to root for the clones more, right? Because you're like, they have a moral center, right? And
Yeah.
they're showing their individuality kind of a thing. And so
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. The other thing that I thought was interesting about this part or this series was so Senator Chuchi steps up, right, and kind of becomes this ally for the clones.
Choo-choo
Which,
gang.
yep, and I kind of wish we had a little bit more background on her actually, because we don't get a
Yeah.
ton of like why is, you know, what is her pull to the clones? Why does she want to do these things, right? And so,
She's very Padme-esque. It filled that gap for me a little because I miss Padme, and she was kind of the only senator that really, well, aside from Bail Organa, that seemed to actually give a damn about everything and everyone. And there's been a gap since she died, so I like that Chuchi kind of filled that role for her and brought that empathy back into the picture of the story.
And she had like that real iconic line, right? So she's in the bar talking to the clones, very politician-esque, like trying to drum up support. But she's like, hey, they're like, why are you doing this? And she's like, well, you've protected us for so long. Let me protect you. You know what I mean? Or look after you. And I thought that was a nice touch.
This is just great writing, too. I mean, let's face it. It's wonderful writing.
Yep. And then Slip, of course, has to come out and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what happened to Cade. There's something bigger going on here, right? This story is unfolding, and there's more than meets the eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I just liked her character a lot, and they brought her through both episodes, which I think was cool. Now, will she make it a long time? I'm not 100% sure what her story arc is going to be.
Yeah.
But
I hope she's in there for a while. I like her.
The other cool thing was, of course, Rex makes his return to the scene. I don't know. That was cool. What'd you think about him coming back?
I love Rex, man. Cody and Rex are such great characters because I think they represent what the clones are now coming to. They just got there a lot quicker. And Rex was just one of those special breed of soldiers, of just an individual. The way that you remember in the end of I think the last episode of the Clone Wars in that season 7 one, he actually fought the inhibitor chip for a moment before he started shooting at Ahsoka. And so we know Rex is a strong character, and we know that in Rebels he ends up appearing as an older man. So I hope we get to see more of him because he's just a well done character. He has a certain screen presence that I enjoy, and he's just essentially like the high tier of clone of what they seem to all be transitioning to.
And he's kind of like, obviously he was the leader, in the clone army, but he's almost like a leader in this new phase as well because he's went AWOL, obviously.
Yep.
And he's making the connection with Slip to try to get him out of there, right? And so he's leading in this new effort, trying to be like, hey, guys, we need to be thinking about the future. We need to, what's our next move as clones? And he's still trying to protect the clones in his own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the clones too they're dealing with some like heavy stuff, right? Because Chuchi's asking them like, hey, what happens when you're too old, for combat anymore?
Stuff they've never faced or thought about. They didn't think they'd get there. It's like they realized they had an expiration date, but they didn't quite understand it to its fullest extent yet.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It was just a cool reveal when Rex, showed up, the hooded figure, saves Chuchi, and then they go on kind of into the next episode where he makes the call to the batch, right? And he's like, "Hey, we need you guys' help," and they're like, well, why are we going to Coruscant? This is a bad idea. Like everyone's looking for us.
Talk about flying into the belly of the beast, right? That's like
for real.
Yeah.
And another cool thing, which we didn't mention, but the place they meet up, right? What was that? It was an iconic location, right? So where did they meet up?
That was when Ahsoka met the Martez sisters down there and sort of became one of them. It's when she was in hiding herself. So it was a great little Easter egg, right? Just to have in there.
Yeah, it's a callback because I didn't think about this till now, but so they're making connections to Clone Wars and they're making connections to Rebels. Like they're just tying in.
It was a neat way to say, hey, Ahsoka's not here right now, but know that she's still part of this. Like she still has a connection in here.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. That I did think that was a cool touch, but that kind of leads us to like the big mystery of that episode, or leading into the second episode, was who this assassin clone is, right? Because he had his number scrubbed, right, or whatever. So Echo.
What does that even mean, by the way? Do you know? I was wondering that when I was watching the episode.
I guess just like their call number. I guess if they had it assigned, and I don't know if it's a part of their DNA or if there's some sort of chip or. I'm not 100% sure, but I guess there must be. That's a good question, actually. There must be a way that they can be identified through a scan or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? So anyway, it sounds like his identification it can't be traced, basically.
Right.
And so Tech
He's
is
an
like,
enigma.
didn't even know that could happen, and Tech knows everything. So,
Right.
but what is the implications of this in your mind? I think you had a prediction, so let's go with a prediction time with
I
Scott.
do. All right. Predictions.
All right.
So
You got
before, not to bring up Palpatine a little early here before we get to him in this episode, but I think we need to acknowledge that Palpatine is always several steps ahead of his opponents, and he will utilize the last bit of utility from almost anyone and everything. He's almost one of those guys that has a usefulness for almost anything, and I think that yes, his goal is obviously to get rid of the clones because they serve their purpose. But to him, in a small way, the clones can still serve a purpose to him. Now, what I'm talking about is when that unnamed clone said he's a believer. That could mean really only a few things. And my prediction is that he's a believer in either the Empire's cause overall, or he's a believer in something like Palpatine and the Force, the ancient Sith practices, whatever. But he very much seemed like a cultist type person. Now, one thing that I've always asked myself for a long time as a fan is, yes, Palpatine has Vader, right? That's his right hand man. He has his admirals and generals. But who are those people that were always around him in the original trilogy? He had the Royal Guards, the guys in red, and then he had kind of his little, I don't know, you remember the guys in robes? I'm not sure what they've ever been, some type of acolyte or something.
okay, yeah,
But Palpatine is in a position where he has a risk on his life most of the time. There's a lot of people that want to obviously take him down. So my theory is that those guards could be like a special forces of clones that's been programmed or bred, and those are his royal guards or whoever else, like his security squad, so to speak. And that's kind of where I'm leaning at, because that's a question they never answered, and I think it'd be a great payoff, a way to kind of slide that in there and say, hey, let's give another explanation for something else. It's like his own little private Bad Batch, essentially.
Well, we all know Sith Lords are susceptible while they sleep, so I guess he needs some protection when he's not conscious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, but we'll kind of go back to it. So yeah, the assassin is kind of being interrogated, right, by the Batch, and he asks Rex, like, what do you believe in? Are you a believer? He's like, I'm a believer. And then he obviously commits, he bites the pill or whatever it is that takes his own life. So he's obviously willing to take this to the extreme, to the full out extent. And so you're right. I think maybe his royal guard is a good call. I think maybe.
Perhaps
because
Dark
they're
Troop,
obviously
what are the Purge troopers? That could maybe be them too.
Okay. Well, they're obviously. So the switch to stormtroopers, right, is because stormtroopers are cheaper, they're easier, you can conscript them, right?
Right.
And the clones obviously take much more investment, time, training.
Yep.
But the payoff to the clones is they are obviously much more adept to combat, right?
Yeah.
They're a better. Obviously, they don't miss their shots like stormtroopers, right? They know how to fight. They know how to strategy.
They're bred
so it makes
for
sense.
combat.
Correct.
Really,
so why wouldn't Palpatine want that type of soldier guarding him? It just makes a lot of sense.
Top tier and fully controllable.
Yes, and they can be trained to combat lightsabers or to, whatever the case.
And they're not droids, as we've seen. The clones are superior to droids, so it's just another piece of the puzzle making sense.
Yeah, so I think your theory is spot on. So you're right. Let's make a short about that and get it out and see what everybody else thinks. Because I think, man, I think you could be onto something. I'm cool to see where that see where that goes. So let's just transition into Palpatine then. I just think that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I'll just say, the way they've handled Palpatine in this series so far has been top tier. Like you mentioned in the last breakdown, whenever he comes on screen, you can feel it. You know what I mean? Like he has a presence even in this animated series that
Terrifying.
is
Like it really is.
Yeah, it totally is. And so I think they've handled him great. And who's voicing him, right? Like what did they do for that?
That's our boy Ian, one of the greats. Yep. And,
So they actually
there's a difference. Like when he's voicing it, not that the other actor is bad. He did a great job. But man, Ian just embodies Palpatine, and that's why he's such a fearsome character. It's just yeah.
So Ian McDermott, Palpatine, is actually voicing Palpatine, which obviously that's amazing. Obviously they can't do that most of the time in the animated series. You don't get that, and so that has obviously raised the level of Palpatine in this series, I think. And so, but he's been understated. But I think here you finally see his cunning, right? Or because he's been behind the scenes, you haven't seen anything really with him, not a whole lot anyway. And so, but like the second, what he has been, I guess the implication is that he's actually been guiding the Bad Batch in their actions, like a silent hand. He wanted them to take every step that they took leading up to him obviously making his grand appearance in the Senate meeting to obviously make Rampart the fall guy for what happens on Kamino.
Oh
but
my
then
God.
also
New theory just popped in my head.
Okay. All right. Part 2 predictions with Scott.
Yep.
Go for
The
it.
Bad Batch was Palpatine's original trial run of making his personal guard. They were faulty, so to speak. So he figured, let's put them to use in the war. Omega, who I'm still predicting is Force sensitive, was his attempt at altering a clone to be Force sensitive to be another apprentice. Boom.
Okay.
And
All right,
now
hold
the
on,
assassin clones are now the perfected version of this.
All right, let me think on this. So, were the Bad Batch originally meant to be his guard, or since they were just effective after that, he was like, "Oh, maybe I'll see what I can do with this."
Yeah, I think it was some type of trial run. There had to be intent. I don't see them just experimenting on clones for the sake of doing it.
Not just to make a special forces.
While that is
batch
very like Nazi-ish, it's not. Palpatine, as we see, doesn't seem to do things without thinking about it and having intent. So I think it was his trial run, and that's why they went to Bad Batch, because they still had a utility, but they weren't what he wanted.
Dude, Omega as a Sith apprentice.
Yep.
Like that kind of makes a lot of sense that Palpatine would want maybe someone with, and obviously maybe there's degrees of this that I'm not missing, but maybe less of a sense of free will as just a normal Force sensitive person, but maybe he's thinking he can
Vader.
Right, like
he was always worried about Vader swapping. Like he was always questioning his loyalty. Even what we saw in at the end of Obi-Wan. Remember when after he had fought Obi-Wan, he came back, he's like, I'm wondering, he was questioning his thoughts about all of it. And he did that in the original trilogy too. So it's almost as if he had to have a backup plan. Same way he did with Maul. Once Maul was gone, he had Dooku. Again, you see, he always has a plan. There's always something there if something goes awry.
Well, yeah, Rampart getting thrown under the bus was kind of a good foreshadowing for Maul. Like Palpatine is willing to sacrifice anyone. Yep. But yeah, I think that theory about like Omega being like just Palpatine making a clone that's Force sensitive, like having the rule of two, and being able to somehow engineer that where your apprentice doesn't have the desire to take your place, like obviously,
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't really know, but that's, dude. Do you think there's a chance Omega could be swayed to the dark side if she is force sensitive?
I don't know, man.
That would be a
That'd
twist.
be quite the plot twist. Yeah. I don't know.
Um,
Maybe
Omega,
she's got some
Omega
sort of a
Palpatine,
filter. Oof. Darth Omega.
Omega Palpatine Skywalker.
Oh my God. I'm leaving. Done. You've triggered me.
So, but we actually had a comment in the last video, or maybe it was the breakdown, that someone was very against her being force sensitive, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around why. Maybe they just want the clones to be the clones. You know what I mean? And I think maybe with the force is, the thought is that if you can, like, is this just random, or can you like genetically modify someone to be force sensitive like that? That's kind of a weird slippery slope, maybe.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go in the direction of the prequels and midichlorians and Anakin being conceived of the Force, and then
I guess Snoke too.
Snoke and Rey, like, I guess you could spin it that way. Me personally, I wouldn't like to see it that way. But look, I think the comment was referring to, and I get it, like, sometimes you kind of feel like they always have to throw a Jedi in there or something.
Right.
And oftentimes, like you said, you want them to just be what they are. Let the clones be clones. Let them be special. But my perspective is, if it's done well, I'm okay with it. Why not it? And why not use that? I mean, the reason we love Star Wars is all the pieces, not in the Jedi being the most popular part of it. If it's executed well, then why not? But I understand why somebody wouldn't.
Well, there is a subset of Star Wars fans, right, who specifically like stories that are not Jedi centered. Like, I think we know this is true, and even us to an extent. Like,
Sure.
the galaxy's a big place, so there's lots of stories to be told. There are, you know what I mean? And so I can understand if someone's like, hey, we just want this to be a non-Jedi story. You know, like Andor, in a sense. You know what I mean? Was an amazing Star Wars story that didn't really focus on the Jedi that we know of yet. So, I mean, I get that, but they're just dropping hints, like her relationship with Gunji, even in this episode, the meditation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and they're starting to push her more and more up the ranks, and there's a lot of character development going on for her, and I love it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just talk about that. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where they're going with the batch, like what the next steps is. I know the next thing they're going to tackle is the Crosshair relationship, right, with the batch. But even after that, what do you think, like, long term, the play with the batches? Is it just like, hey, this is their story leading into the rebellion, right? And they become a part of that. Is that kind of just what we're doing here? You know what I mean?
I think it can go either way. Would we like to see the characters go that far? I mean, as a fan, yeah, but I think part of what makes Star Wars great, and you've said that before, is the sacrifices that they make, the selflessness in a lot of aspects. So how far they make it up to the rebellion, I don't know. I'd be perfectly okay if they just flew into the sunset, into the Tatooine.
Even Omega, you're not worried if she doesn't progress past?
She's kind of a wild card. I'm still not sure where they're going with her. I can see them sending the other clones off, or them perhaps perishing, but she's a wild card, man. I really have no idea where Filoni is planning to take that.
I mean, because she's a kid, right? And so for a kid to like have some kind of sacrificial, saving others kind of a thing, I think is kind of risky. Like, I don't know. You think she would progress forward and move on.
I can't imagine that they would invest this much buildup in her and development to do something like that. I personally think Filoni has some sort of a grand arc for her as well.
Well, they're obviously building her because, like you said, there's some good progression in this episode. She's, again, we've kind of seen a theme where certain characters take her under their wing. So you have Chuchi in this episode, like showing her the realities of the political side, of the Empire. Hey, the clones aren't represented. We have to fight, in the Senate to, for what's right, and this is just kind of the reality of what the Empire is, and gives her a more broad sense of what her and the Batch are. I guess they're not fighting for it yet. They're still kind of doing their own thing, but coming to help Rex. Like Rex is obviously has a mission and a goal, above himself. And so they're starting to realize this. And we see this at the end of the episode, right? With Echo. Echo's like, this is where I need to be. I need to be in the place where I can help the most people because my purpose is to actually combat what the Empire is doing, not just to stay off their radar and live out my life kind of a thing. He has more of a soldier's mentality.
This is what the sequel trilogy was severely lacking in a character like Rey that they were trying to build up, like a new character. And maybe Filoni's trying to, I don't know, make up for that in some way, because we've seen her as a total, more or less helpless kid. And then she's got thrust into combat. I said this in the breakdown. And she's seen a lot of combat. She's met a lot of people. She's learned a lot in a short time. She's now met a Jedi and befriended him. Now she's learning the political aspect. So if she ever arrived at a point that was on the power level of somebody like Rey or whatever on a higher level, it would make sense, because I'd be like, wow, yeah, she had an incredible journey that I can understand why she's here now.
Omega, new Rey confirmed. You heard it here. So the
when
other
Luke
thing
throws a lightsaber, she'll kick him in the nuts instead of, why would you do that? Just don't.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, this is kind of minor, but I picked up on it, is in a way it was good to see Palpatine be a step ahead and so easily see that he manipulated the situation to throw Rampart all the blame towards Rampart, right? So the guards come in, they arrest him, but I was kind of disappointed because they had built up this tension between Rampart and Crosshair, and so I was kind of hoping to see
I don't think
climax
it's
to
over yet.
that.
That ain't
You don't
over
think
yet.
so?
No, that's not the last we've seen of Rampart.
You don't think so?
No, something's gonna happen. They're not just gonna build him up like that, have the rivalry with Crosshair, and he's just gonna disappear into a cell. No, something's gonna happen. Yeah.
Okay. Because that was my first thought. I was like, man, I really wanted to see a payoff with this.
Maybe some friends
Rampart
become enemies, become friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Rampart and Crosshair got to work together to. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, he's not just gonna just disappear.
Oh, like the friend of my enemy, or I don't know, whatever this saying is. The enemy of my enemy.
Enemy is my friend. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's it. That would be an interesting twist, like him needing Rampart to accomplish something, and then Rampart, of course, turning on him, like he will in the end, and having that showdown.
I think Crosshair is going to have a redemption arc. I hope he does. He's a cool character.
Well, the back end of this this season has to be about Crosshair, right? Like he's been out of the picture for too many episodes. So, but to be fair, like I actually liked Rampart's character, like his absolute disdain for the clones, like refusing to call them by their names, like using their number, like throwing it in their face, like totally ambitious to climb the ladder. You know what I mean? No matter what. It was very Empire-esque, like the new Empire kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
he's definitely got that Tarkin vibe.
Totally. And you can kind of tell that was, don't know if that was his mentor, but I think he had mentioned being scared of Tarkin, before. They alluded to that, so
Yeah.
he's well aware of Tarkin and who he is, and
That's what it's all about. Higher level up, intimidation and control. And there's they're a bunch of wolves, man.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, these 2 episodes were obviously incredible. We got the answer. I think I think we kind of knew, but just to have it spelled out, the way it unfolded.
It was nice to see it. We knew they were phased out somehow. Something happened, and now we know. And it was, of course, through super gross treachery and disregard for the well-being of the clones. So,
and it was Filoni, of course. It had to be Filoni.
Of course.
Is there ever a part of you that's disappointed some of these huge reveals and story arcs are happening in animation versus live action?
I think so. I know it's an easier way to do it, but I think if we had the choice, most of these fans, if we were given a choice to see this in live action, imagine this episode in Andor. Wow. Like, think of
seeing Palpatine.
Yeah, think of the weight. Because obviously the Empire, the bureaucratic stuff that Daedra or something in Andor, it is what we see here, but it's just so much more relatable and carries a lot more weight, I think, seen in live action. It's not to take away from this that it's a cartoon. It is very well done, and I still am thoroughly enjoying it. But yeah, I'd much rather see this in live action.
I guess the way I would put it is, I want to see these stories. Any important story, I want Filoni to be behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
If that means it's got to be animation, I guess I'm fine with that. Yeah. Even though I would want it,
even if it's Legos.
I think he's just biding his time until he is in control. Of live action things, and I think we will see those things. But this is the way, obviously, the way it unfolded here.
This is the way.
I don't want to see it any other way, right? Even though it was animation, the quality of the story, the twists, the reveals, the attention to the character development and the clones, all of that, spot on, And so
it won't be until Filoni sprouts a strange beard and starts rocking a tucked-in flannel with jeans. And then we know the transition.
Wears glasses.
Fully occurred. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I don't know, man. Obviously, he's the key to the future of Star Wars, and so I'll take the animated stuff from him. But we are about to get more live action Filoni with Ahsoka. So, I mean, it's gonna be incredible. I can't wait.
I'm telling you, Ahsoka and Andor have been the test, and that's testing the waters of the future of Star Wars.
Well, Ahsoka, man, that's a whole nother live show. Hopefully, lots of live shows to come about talking about Ahsoka. We obviously have Mando before then, which is, I guess, Favreau is kind of, he's in charge of Mando, right, for the most part.
Yeah, and Favreau's great too. Both those guys should definitely be the head of all Star Wars going forward.
Correct. I'm happy with whatever they put out. I'm confident it's going to be good. So, but anyway, great wrap up to the first half of the season. And so I'm really looking forward to what they do with Crosshair in the resolution with the clones. You're right. There's going to be some kind of sacrifice going on. I'm not sure where from yet. I'm sure we'll start to get hints as the season goes on. But, man, it's been cool. So anyway, guys, if you haven't seen our recent breakdowns of episodes 7 and 8, go check them out on the channel. Scott did an amazing job with those scripts. So, as he always does. And anyway, we want to switch gears, and we're going to talk a little bit about Jedi Survivor. Let's switch over and see what we got. All right, guys. So I think since the last time we met, we got a gameplay trailer, right? I think it was on IGN, got the exclusive.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Gameplay trailer, right.
A surprise, but a welcome one.
We got 9 or 10 minutes of gameplay, which I thought was cool. I'll just open it to you, Scott, because you're the resident expert on Fallen Order and stuff. You have tons of time into that game, and so what were your initial impressions of the Survivor gameplay trailer that came out?
I think it's everything that I would want to see in a sequel of a game that was already great. Like you don't want to change the equation if it works. The first game was well done. I think it was a sort of like I mentioned with Andor and Ahsoka as kind of a trial run. I think that this was their Fallen Order was their trial run at this type of game for Star Wars, which is it's a pretty linear single player RPG, so to speak, but it's also very Dark Soulsy. So the combat is very similar to it. So when I look at this trailer, as we're seeing it right now, it looks like just on the surface, a refinement of the combat, some additions, maybe some quality of life stuff. But overall, it looks like just an improvement on the first game, which is
Compare that. You think
fine.
it really does? I mean, does it look mainly the same game, or do you think it's going to play a lot different, or just an improvement, like you said?
I think it will play very much the same. It looks as though they've just added some, like I said, quality of life, but also small nuances. Obviously, we see the sabers. You could very limitedly use two in the first one, and the double bladed was, I'd say, a little limited as well. It was you can tell the game was built around the single saber combat, whereas this one looks like you can honestly use any style you want and still get through the game. So I think that's a cool touch for
More
most
freedom.
fans. Yeah, because if you want to play the classic single blade, you can. If you want to go more of that double blade, dual wield. I'm more of a dual wield guy, so I like the being able to use the double blade and break them apart and use them as two single ones. I think it's a nice touch. But yeah, it's just the word that comes to mind is just refinement. That's what it looks like. Much more smooth, for sure.
Yeah, my initial impressions as someone who hasn't played, I'm getting more and more pressure for me to feel like I have to play these games.
You absolutely have to, and you need to stream it.
So I don't know. I'm and I think people know this. I've talked about this a lot on the channel. I just don't usually play single player games. I'm more of a PvP multiplayer kind of player, and so. And as us as dads, we have limited time to play, so I try to choose my game time wisely. And so, but what really jumped out to me, like you touched on it a little bit, is the kind of saber swapping. I mean, I was like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. To be able to go from kind of like Darth Maul-esque, like in some of the Clone Wars, where he can go from double bladed to dual wield kind of a thing, and I'm like, that is cool. Like, I don't think I would ever use a single. I think I like double bladed the most, but dual wield does look cool.
Yeah.
But the freedom to kind of play the way you want to play, anytime in games where you have choice, you know what I mean, and you can express yourself in the way you want to play, just seems cool. And so, like in this one, we see in the trailer, sometimes he uses lots of force abilities. Sometimes
that double blade looks cool.
yes, sometimes he's using saber combat more so. You know what I mean? And so that is just, man, such a cool touch.
Even down to the nice little touches, how he turns it off and sheathes it and connects it back together.
The animations, the animations
it's those
are super cool.
little things that make a game great. Like it's all the pieces, and this world looks a little more, I guess, lively to me. It's definitely bigger. You can tell it's not nearly as linear as the first game was. There's an open world element to it that wasn't there before. The NPCs. If it was a couple scenes before this one, the NPCs were communicating with each other, and they had a couple lines in Fallen Order, but there's more going on. And similar to Red Dead and Hogwarts, anytime that world feels more alive, it makes the game better because it's just more immersive.
Yeah, well, I know you talk a lot about the first game being a little more linear, and
Very
I don't know
much.
that this is not linear, but I think what you're trying to allude to is that the spaces are a little more open that you
Yeah.
can play in. Like you have a little bit more of a sandbox to play in when
You can
you're
get on
trying to
mounts.
accomplish that.
Yeah.
Right. Dude,
There's
this is
also
like
fast travel now.
animal abuse right here. Like I don't know
Well, I
what he's
mean, to
doing
be
in this
fair, they're
trailer.
attacking him.
But yeah,
That's
oh
so
man,
cool.
the switch to the double bladed is so cool.
Yeah.
And you can tell, I think they, like we talked about this in one of our
That one is
trailer
awesome.
breakdowns. Yeah, the
Uh,
whenever he changes, oh, that's cool too. The throw. Whenever he changes to a different, like it, whether a single or the lightsaber with the guard on it, right? Like the actual style of combat changes. Like the
yes.
animations change to the style he's using, which
Finishers change.
right. And
Heck,
this
Cal
is
is
super cool.
OP. I, how you gonna put this
It
guy in live action? We never seen anybody do
they
this.
have to. They have to. Come
I
on,
know.
Ahsoka show. We need some Cal. But yeah, so I don't know. It's definitely. I was man really impressed with the gameplay stuff they showed, and
Yeah.
so look right there, unlocking you know,
At least it's not a
cosmetics.
poncho. The first game is all
All he
ponchos.
wore.
So now that I see a jacket, at least I know they're working on it. And I pre-ordered. The pre-order gives you the Obi-Wan robe from the Obi-Wan show,
Interesting.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, that
Well,
looks
that
memorable
I'm
looking.
big
That's what I'll play
on
wearing.
character customization in games.
Yeah.
Another reason I don't play a lot of single player because you're playing as a pre-made character, which I like to create my own
Right.
character in games. But if you can play as this and you have a lot of different transmog options and
And you
character
can
customization,
you
that's
can
cool.
fully customize the lightsaber. I assume they're adding more to that,
Interesting.
which was
Okay.
already pretty robust in the first game.
Right.
You could collect pieces. You could change the hilt, the emitter, the crystals, the connector.
Hmm.
You could change the type of metal it was. Like you could customize your lightsaber quite a bit. And
Gotcha.
I'm assuming it's going to be the same for this.
So what do you think this hourglass thing is at the bottom of the screen? I know it kept coming up, and I was at first I didn't know what it was. I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out if it's like a some kind of ultimate ability charging up, or if it's like a force meter. I know one of them have to be a force meter, but what are your? Did you notice that?
One is your block bar.
Okay.
You see it go down, I believe. Is it
Okay, right
moving
there.
there?
He's using the hourglass thing.
It looks like some sort of alt or super ability with each style.
It
He
looked
keeps
like
using
like a
force
slow
stasis.
time.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Stasis, like a slow time kind of a thing.
Maybe each
Maybe.
maybe each stance has its own sort of
Okay.
super hit or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a new feature. That wasn't in the first one.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
there is a force bar, I'm guessing, right? Like you only have a certain
Yeah.
amount of.
There's a force. I think the two on the bottom there, if I remember correctly, one is a like a defense bar. So the more you block, it will start to dwindle. You can't just sit there and hold block the whole time.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have to roll
That's good.
around, time your blocks, and then the other one is a force meter. So you can't
Okay.
spam force push or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Okay. No, I think that's all cool. Like I said, I'm super impressed with it.
Yeah.
Most of my game time recently, I have been playing a lot of Star Wars: The Old Republic, so I'm still heavy into Star Wars games, And
Yeah.
if I have a choice of a game I want to play a Star Wars game. And so
Yeah.
I like the merging of almost like a Assassin's Creed with like a Star Wars coat of paint on it, because I know you have a lot of the parkour and the climbing elements, like, the wall running right here. So I
It's
was
so
a big fan of
smooth too,
Assassin's
man.
Creed in the day. Okay.
The first one was so smooth. So I imagine this one might feel even better.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm considering this one. I know I didn't pick up Hogwarts, but this is definitely on my radar. And so I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. Any other big things that you noticed from it that were maybe different or just new features or stuff that looked cool?
Well, I said mounts. Mounts
Okay.
are in it. Looks like Cal can also tame mounts, kind of like Anakin did in the Clone Wars. BB-8's back, or not? Sorry, BB-8. BD. BD1. That's his little droid's name. He was a great little character. Star Wars
Yeah.
always seems to do the droids really well.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Even BB-8 was cool. Even the trilogy wasn't cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
BB-8 was a nice touch. So yeah, BD1's back. Looks as though there's a zip line now or some type of grapple.
Yeah, I
So
noticed
it
it like a
makes-
grapple hook to the wall or something that he
so
used.
there's a little
Yeah.
more mobility than the first one. New enemy types. The enemies were there was a variation, but not too many. So what's cool is I like the touch of the looks like reprogrammed super battle droids, normal battle droids,
Yeah,
some type of bounty hunter. They had bounty hunter system in the first one. Just I see more enemy variation, which is nice. And just overall, yeah, refinement. What I'm most curious about right now is the story. Like I knew there was going to be a sequel when I finished the first one. I hadn't predicted it was going to go in this direction. So I'm curious to see who that person in the Bacta was, and if there's more Inquisitors. If maybe we'll see a crossover with the show. Maybe Ahsoka will make an appearance. I don't know. But if it's anything like the first story, I expect some good stuff here.
okay, well, thanks for no spoilers because I'm probably going to play the first one now. And if that's one thing that would really pull me in is if there's crossovers with characters from the live action shows. I think that is like, that would be 100% what I want to see. I want to see the games make a connection to the Star Wars world as a whole. You know what I mean?
At this point, I can't see how Cal will not show up in any of the shows. He's clearly gotten very powerful. He's part of an overall bigger story here based on the first game. Unless they kill him off in this game, I don't see how he's not going to show up. He has to at some point. And he's a great character. He's well acted and he's got a really cool place in the universe. I like the type of Jedi that were young when Order 66 took place because they're not so dogmatic. They're learning the Force and learning what they were taught, like the fundamentals.
Just naturally, because the Order is gone.
And they are who they are. Like Cal's a good character. He's a good person. And he seems to be growing in both power and in his altruism and morality. So he's a great character. I love like Gunji, seeing them young, like Kanan. He's one of those characters, like Ezra, like seeing these guys.
The downside is you obviously also don't have direction.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like the speculation about maybe Ezra, being susceptible to the dark side because there's a range of, you know what I mean? Like if Plagueis would have, got to Anakin first or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's obviously that goes both ways, but that makes it interesting though, right? I mean, if you know that the outcome can go multiple directions.
And still where we are in the story, like there's still a lot in this Survivor. Vader and Palpatine are still very much alive. So
right.
Who knows?
Well, I would love to see Cal be mentored by like Ahsoka or something, or have interactions with Ahsoka. That would be like the ultimate for me. That would be like a deal, like seal the deal for me playing this game. It wouldn't even be a question. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing.
Agree.
So
I fully agree. And I think that's why they're keeping a lot of this. Most games we sort of have an idea of the story, right? Like, but now we honestly know nothing. They have been very, very hidden about what's going on here. They've kept it close to the vest, so to speak.
Well, it seems like there is still a renaissance of Star Wars games that is occurring, especially now that EA is not the lone license holder, even though I know this is an EA game. We know of other games in the works, the Ubisoft game, the Eclipse game that's been teased. Yeah. Some stuff that has a lot of potential. And I think Star Wars games are making a resurgence, not just the Battlefront, you know what I mean, and that kind of thing. Yeah. This style of game, and hopefully a new MMO in the works, is what I'm really rooting for.
Sure.
But even in general, like for gaming right now, it's a good time, right? Hogwarts,
Great time.
Jedi. There's a couple MMOs coming out, you know, and Throne and Liberty, some other things I'm looking at. And so obviously I've been playing a ton of Destiny 2. So the new Destiny 2 expansion's coming out. So lots to look forward to, but especially in Star Wars games. I know updates for Star Wars are starting to get a little more regular. Star Wars The Old Republic, which is my main MMO. So I don't know, man. I'm pretty pumped. And so I think you are too.
Oh, beyond excited for this game.
Yeah. So anyway, man, Survivor, when's the date?
It was March 3rd or March 10th, I think. It's moved to
Did they push it back to April, I think, right?
believe, if I'm remembering right, it's April 28th. I know
Okay.
it's April. Yeah.
And that is that before or after Mando drops?
Mando's March 1st.
March 1st. Okay. So we'll have a little bit of Mando, then we'll have Survivor come out. Okay. That's awesome.
It's a good couple months coming up, man. And I'm just trying to enjoy Harry Potter, and
Yeah, man.
I'd hope to get, man, I'd love to play Destiny as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, Destiny's a good time when you have friends playing, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cool game.
It is a good game.
All right, man, let's switch over and let's get out of here.
Man.
All right, so I would say stay tuned. I think we're gonna try to get some footage of Scott on Hogwarts. I don't know when that's gonna be, but I know I want to kind of pick his brain, or maybe have him do an impressions video on Hogwarts, especially coming from a big Harry Potter fan like he is. I just think that would be super cool to get his thoughts.
I have all this useless knowledge about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. I know so much about it. What am I doing with it? Come on.
We're making a YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, and then I would say check out our other channel, our gaming channel, just at BadCuzDad on YouTube. You know, we've had that channel actually longer than this channel. We've have lots of MMO content, some single player content, a lot of Star Wars stuff on there if you're only into Star Wars games. So you'll definitely get some of that over there too. So
And
yeah, just think.
we're also dancing around with the time we'll be doing this show. I'd like to go to the weekends.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. So we're trying to figure out. Scott's got, you know, another kid on the way. So we got to juggle times and figure out what works with our already busy schedules. So yeah, we're trying to see what works best. But everyone who's joined us on Mondays, man, we appreciate it. And we're going to try to stay consistent and just find a good time that works for us. So we appreciate you guys always hanging out, stopping by, showing up in the comments. You know, just like sharing this stuff with you guys. It's our creative outlet. And we like talking about Star Wars. We like talking about video games. So thank you guys. We always appreciate you. All right, man. Well, I guess that's it.
All right.
Until next week, look for our breakdown next week of Bad Batch. And yeah, we'll see you next weekend for the live show.
All right.
Later, everybody.
See ya.